Hey everybody, you're watching Cadroll Hunter, and I picked up this bag of old silver, and I love me some old silver. We're gonna see if I can fill any spots in my collection, see if there are any better dates or key dates, see if we got something really cool. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, this is James and you're watching my channel, Cadroll Hunter. Every once in a while I get a chance to buy some silver. Usually we call it junk silver or scrap silver, particularly here in Canada we call it. Usually that's a lot of stuff from the 60s, but in this case I was able to buy this bag of silver, and this is mostly some really old stuff. You can see a date here, 1880, you can see 1915. I can see King George V, I can even see Queen Victoria. And there's some US stuff in here and different denominations, even that right in the corner there, that looks to be a Canadian 5-cent piece. We call those fish scales because they're so small. So I'm very excited about this, hoping to see if I find anything that I'm missing in my collection. Now, if I can actually get this open, I'd love to dump it out. There's a few things in flips here, and there's one thing that's not silver. It's that one right there. We'll look at that. There we go. But we got some old silver. We'll start with this guy right here, though, because this is 1 cent. This is copper. This is from the United States, and look at that. It is 1837. It is really, really old. We'll take a look at that in a bit. But yeah, we got tons of stuff here. We've got half dollars. We've got Canadian and American stuff. All sorts of goodies here. I'm going to start getting this sorted out. We'll take a look at what we got. Hopefully we got some range of dates here. Well, I think we'll start with the US stuff. We've got 5 half dollars. These are the Walking Liberty, and I actually think that these are in better than average condition. You usually see like wear straight up and down here, like you can see here, but on some of these you don't really see that, not too much. Check this 1935 out. Actually has great detail, some kind of tarnishing or toning there. But lots of great detail on this feathers and the bird. That is really beautiful coin. That is Philadelphia. These are all Philadelphia except for this 1945. This one here is a San Francisco, and you can see the little S mint mark just by my thumb there. And here is the more worn 1942. Some of that date is worn. Not quite as much detail, but this guy here, a lot more detail on this side. Still got some wear, but some of these are looking pretty good. There's a 1946. I think honestly the 45S looks like it might be one of the better ones, but this 1935 has tons of detail. This is in excellent shape. I'm going to look this up and see what kind of value this has in a higher grade. It's not uncirculated, but even with that toning, it looks like it might be in a XF or maybe an AU. I'll take a peek. So none of these are rare by any stretch. The 35 Philadelphia, that is, even in a VG8, it's a $19 coin, but in an XF or an EF, as they put it here, that is a $25 coin, so a bit of a premium. If you considered it an AU, in the $30 range, so that's actually really cool. Quite a bit more than just melt value, which is good. Now here's one that I've always wanted. This is much older. This is an 1893, the Columbian Exposition. If I flip it over, we've got Christopher Columbus here, United States of America half dollar. Very dark, got some serious toning on it, but that is some old American silver, an old commemorative half dollar. Very cool. There's also one, I believe, dated 1892. I think that might be the less common of the two. If you know for sure, put that in the comments. I was trying to find it in my red book, and I couldn't find the commemorative half dollars. I'm sure it's in there somewhere, but if you know information that I don't, please put that in the chat. So there was just one Canadian half dollar. This is from 1951, and it's going to feature King George VI. It is pretty circulated, and but yeah, 50 cents, 80% silver. I love the design. This is probably my favorite design in all of Canadian coinage. This, of course, was changed. The coat of arms was updated. The design of the coin was changed in later years. But I always loved this design. But this 1951, I think this might be the newest coin in this whole lot. So there's a lot of much older stuff here. Now, before we do the rest of the silver, let's just skip right ahead to this large cent. This is really cool. 1837. This is the coronet or matron head. And this one, I think, is probably in about a VG. And I should probably say I spent $200 on this bag of silver, and this was kind of thrown in, but this has some real value. If I check it out here, this is going to be the medium letters, and we'll look at that in a second. And in a VG, it's about a $35 coin. That's $35 US, and I paid $200 Canadian for the whole thing. So I think I did pretty well. VG8, and there's photo grading sites you can look at to give you an idea what to look for and how much wear is acceptable for each level. If I go to Numista, this was a very helpful resource for me to find the difference here. This is the medium letters. If I put mine under the scope here, we can actually see these medium letters are pretty large. And apologies for the glare on the flip, but that is definitely these much larger letters. When you look at how much space it takes here, it's not towards the rim like this one is. So it's the medium letters, and it's the head of 1837 plain cord. You can't really see that all that well here because there is some wear, but I don't think it is the beaded cord. I think we would see that on here. We just don't see the, I mean, I can see the cord, but I don't see any evidence of the beadings, and I think we'd see the little spaces where the recessed areas between the beads were. We don't see that. But if this is a $35 coin, that is super fantastic. I just don't get opportunities to find old American cents like this. I recently got an old 2-cent piece, which was really cool. This is really awesome as well. And this here is a mix of 5-cent and 10-cent coins. I'm going to get them all organized and by date so we can go through them. Right now it looks to be mostly King George V and a couple of Victorian. We'll see. I just liberated these two from the flips that they were in. I don't know why they were in flips. These are tremendously damaged, both of them. So I'm not sure if the flips were helping them saved from further damage or what, but I'll just sort them in with the rest of them here. So here's a bit of an unexpected surprise. There's 10 cents from Newfoundland, 1940. It features a bit of a different portrait of King George VI there, and there's lots of great detail. Unfortunately, it's got some damage on the rim. I'm not sure what happened, but it looks like it took a bit of a hit there. Otherwise, this would be a really great find. It's actually in pretty good condition. Despite the toning or tarnishing on it, it's got tons of great detail, except for that damage. If this was an EF, it would be a $15 coin. Now, that's not a lot, but one thing I want to show you, and this is just crazy, is that there's only 100,000 of these minted. It's actually a pretty key date amongst the Newfoundland 10-cent pieces. It's really crazy low. I'll throw it under the scope here because there is a variety you might have noticed there, and it's a re-engraved date, sometimes called a double die, but probably re-engraved on the hub. But here's where you can see it. This is from the Saskatoon Coin Club's website. They've got tons of great pictures and resources. So you can see where the date and where it says cents have all been sort of re-engraved. We're not seeing any evidence of that on here. If we had found that, that would have been a really, really cool find. But don't get me wrong, that's pretty cool in and of itself. One other tidbit of Canadian coin trivia here is that Newfoundland coins, some of them were minted in Canada and some were minted at the Royal Mint in England. This 1940 was minted in Canada, and usually all the Canadian minted coins have a C mint mark on the face of the coin, and that was forgotten. In the 1940 issue, it didn't end up having the C mint mark. It was just an omission, and further issues from 41 and up all carried the C mint mark. It just was missed on this one. I think we'll start with the 5-cent pieces. These are really tiny. As I said earlier, they call them fish scales. This one here was one of the ones in the flip. It's George V, and it is totally trashed. I can't even get a date off it at all. If I put it up under the scope, I think you can see the 19. I have no idea what that is. The only tragic thing would be if it was a 1921. Almost all of the ones that were minted from 1921 were melted down and were never actually issued to the public. And yeah, you can see the prices here are pretty crazy. Not terribly likely. It's probably a 1918 or something like that. But in this condition, hold and trashed, it is just worth its silver content, which is not very much because it's so small. This next one here that is also completely trashed, this is an 1880, and we can actually see that under the scope here. You can actually make it out 1880. So we know what it is. It's, again, only worth its silver content. It wasn't a rare or valuable year necessarily. There was a variation. If I flip it over, there were two obverses. There was an obverse 2 and an obverse 3. The obverse 2 had a pointed end to the bust here, and the obverse 3 was more rounded. The obverse 3 that was rounded was the more common of the two. Yeah, we're never going to know on this one because there's so much damage, like it's just crazy. We wouldn't know that, but we know for sure it's an 1880. Luckily, I already have one in my collection that looks way better than that one. We've got another Queen Victoria. This one is from 1901. This is minted at 2 million. And even in this condition, like this is such a small coin, but this is probably still worth $5 or $10 even in this condition. And that's well more than its silver content. These 5-cent pieces, some of them are actually quite valuable. Not the ones that we got necessarily, but that's still pretty decent. And then this is really cool. We got a few of these King George V. This one here is a 1913. They're so small, I'm going to put it under the scope so we can actually see the details. There we go, 1913. Still got lots of detail on that guy. And I'll flip it over. And yeah, this might be a VG. So that's cool, but even cooler is this next one. This one here is a 1915. And the 1915 is actually the key date in this series. It's got more wear. This is the high point, and it's very common for this part of the coin to wear, but we can clearly see the date 1915. If we check in the Charlton catalog, there's the 1915 there, 1.1 million. Even in a VG8, it's an $18 coin. If this was a F12, which I'm not going to say that it is in this condition, it would be 27, but you can see well more than melt value and well more than many of the other ones. So that's actually really cool that we got that. And what's even cooler is that I don't have a 1915, or I should say I didn't, but I'm going to flip this up and add it to my binder. So that's really cool to fill a hole from a essentially junk silver purchase. That's awesome. Last up, this is essentially the last year of issue, the 1920, considering most of the 1921s were destroyed. But the 1920 here, this is the nicest one. It's got some discoloration on it, but it's got lots of detail. And so that's really cool too. Very high mintage compared to the others, over 10 million minted for that one. So it is really just worth, in this condition, I'm going to say, you know, it might still be $6 or $10 even in this condition, which is still pretty cool. So I think we'll start the dimes from the later years. We've got a couple of 1936s. There's a variety there with a bar right at the base of the ribbon. We don't have that. We've got some 1932s, including this one, which would have been the nicest one. It's got lots of detail, but somebody has cleaned this so harshly. You can see all of the scratches on both sides. Wow. Otherwise, there would have been tons of detail, but it probably got tarnished, and somebody thought that they would get that off and improve the look of the coin, but you can see how badly that's scratched. That is a terrible shame. We got a couple of 1931s, we got a 1930, some 1929s, and there's a 1920. All of these are 80% silver, and when we get into 1919, we got a whole stack of them. These are sterling silver. So this is probably the nicest of the 1919s on the top here. probably in a VG. And then this one is probably the nicest of all of the coins. Check this 1918 out. It's actually pretty lustrous. It's got some toning, so you can see why somebody might have tried to scratch off all that like greeny, browny stuff that's on it on that other one. I'm glad they didn't do it to this one. This one is actually in great shape, got lots of detail, but it's got that tarnishing. I'll throw this under the scope so you can kind of see. You can see how much natural luster it still has on it, even under that tarnishing. It's not completely without issues. It's got a scratch up here, but otherwise the fields are pretty clean, and it's got all the detail in the leaves. Just a beautiful coin. That is awesome. We got a couple of those 1918s. There's a 1913, and then we have a couple of Victorian, that 1901. And then this one here, I'm going to show you, I'm going to throw this one under the scope because this one might be the star of the whole show. I'm going to backtrack just a little bit here. This is a 1901. This is a last year Queen Victoria Canadian dime. It's probably a G. Most of the obverse detail is gone, but it's minted at just 1.1 million. So it has some numismatic value. It's probably worth about $10 in this condition. So that's well beyond the melt for a silver dime. Of course, this is also sterling silver, but yeah, so that's really cool. But this is the one that I'm truly excited about. This is an 1893. I'm going to flip it over, and it's probably somewhere between a G and a VG, maybe somewhere in the middle there. And this is a very hard to come by coin. I'm going to throw it under the scope. We'll take a closer look. Now, there are two varieties, well, there's a bunch of varieties, but two major distinctions in the 1893, and that is with the obverse that was used, and the other distinction is the date. This is what's called the flat top three. There's another variety with a rounded top three, so that's easy to tell that's the flat top three. If I flip it over and we look at the obverse, and still lots of great detail here, the two varieties, the two obverse dies that were used, there is this one that has this rounded ear and one that has a different shaped ear. So this is the obverse 6. And look at all the detail. We still have detail on the hair. We still have some of the facial detail and the eye and all of that. So it's somewhere between a G and a VG. If it's closer to the VG, we have to look at this here. So if we have flat top 3, obverse 6, in a VG, it is $110 coin. Even if it was in a G, $55. So this is fantastic. Also, I don't have this one in my collection either. So this just tells you this is a pretty awesome one. Limited to just 500,000 minted. A lot of these are pretty low mint years, just in the hundreds of thousands. And they're all pretty hard to come by. I don't have it, or I didn't have it, and I have it now. That is awesome, and it's actually in pretty great shape for an 1893, like you saw in some of the other ones where a lot of this part of the detail is gone. We have all of that, and we still have lots of detail on the obverse, so I'm super excited about that. So I'm always happy when I can add some silver to my collection, particularly if I can add old silver, stuff that I don't see very often, and this is not stuff you would regularly see in a junk silver bin either. Maybe this stuff here if you're going to the States, but I think that some of these are in better condition than you might see, and you can't go wrong with an 1893. I really hope you enjoyed looking at some old silver and a little bonus copper here. Thank you so much for watching. I always appreciate it. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, Capital Hunter, go ahead and hit that button. I'd appreciate it. Please give the video a like. That's a great way to let the algorithm show my channel to other people who might enjoy my content. Thank you so much for watching. I always appreciate it. We'll see you again next time. The sponsors of today's video are Lighthouse Canada and the Charlton Press. Lighthouse Canada is the leading supplier of high-quality numismatic supplies in Canada, and the Charlton Press is the leading publisher of coin and paper money catalogs and price guides for Canadian collectors. Go check out their online stores today and use the exclusive discount code CRH20 for 20% off all your purchases.